Good evening. It's 19:05 in London. I'm Dave King. This is Nikki Scott, and these are the Together Talks. Never mind EastEnders, never mind Emmerdale. This is the only soap opera you need on a Tuesday evening, as once again we invite guests from a wide spectrum of society to be put under the Together Talk spotlight.
Yes, good evening. And tonight, for the first time, we've got not one, but two guests for your delectation and delight. Thank you to everyone who has sent in questions in advance, but please feel free to fire in your questions live this evening, whether you're watching on Zoom or YouTube. These will be picked up by Vic and Krez and filtered through to us. Oh, and by the way, if you are watching on YouTube, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share the videos to keep in touch with what we're doing on Together Talks.
So tonight we're delighted to welcome Heidi Eggleton and Luke Addison, two people who very much represent the future of Rotary, but who, as you'll hear tonight, have packed in more experiences and more air miles than their peers. Heidi is currently living in North Dorset. She's just finished her degree in international development with human rights at Sussex University, and in 2 weeks' time, she takes over as chair of Rotaract in Great Britain and Ireland. Luke, who lives in Woking, was chair of Rotaract in 2016 and is currently a Rotarian in Winchester. He's been a drama, a peace studies and an English teacher, as well as a poet and a peace activist. Luke and Heidi are also heavily involved with PeaceJam, which I'm sure we'll hear about later on, and they've organised a number of conferences. So before we meet Heidi and Luke, let's catch up with them with these video clips.
Hello, my name is Heidi Eggleton and I'm a graduate in international development, with my recent research being in women's access to higher education in Kenya, particularly unpacking gendered expectations, aspirations, and reasons why women might struggle to access university. I now work in the field of development and peace studies. If it wasn't for the coronavirus, I'd be working in Uganda right now with a small peace building organisation. However, I'm currently in Dorset, helping my mum run her local cafe as a takeaway in the community, and it's been amazing. With regards to my other work, I'm also a trustee for the Burns Prize Foundation, which is an organisation working with young people in the UK, giving them grants to complete community-based projects. I'm an MC for PeaceJam Europe, an organisation bringing together young people and Nobel Peace Laureates. And with regards to Rotary, in July, I'll be the new chair of Rotaract Great Britain and Ireland. And I'm also co-founding the Rotaract E-Club of Great Britain and Ireland. So that's me in a nutshell.
Hello, I'm Luke. I first got involved with Rotary while I was studying English and drama at the University of Winchester. The studying of drama soon developed into drama teaching. And I'm now a drama teacher using drama to teach things such as peace education, conflict resolution, amongst other things. I started the Rotaract Club in Winchester in 2013 and soon became the district representative and not long after the national representative for Rotaract across the UK. I joined the Rotary Club of Winchester last year as a Rotarian. I'm now chair of the Environment Committee and I sit on the International Committee, and I'm very proudly a member of the Winchester Club. My work outside of Rotary, I work as a carer for older people alongside my drama teaching, and I also work with an organisation called PeaceJam, which focuses on peace education for young people worldwide. I consider myself a global citizen very much thanks to Rotary and the international opportunities that it's provided me.
So I think you'll agree from those introductions, we've got a lot to look forward to tonight. Before our guests come on Together Talks, we always ask them for a little bit of background. And in their notes, both Heidi and Luke sent in some interesting quotes. Luke says that he is driven by two philosophies: to know more today about the world than I knew yesterday, and also to lessen the suffering of others. Wonderful mottos to live by. And Heidi wrote, "I am determined, and as Nobel Peace Prize winner Betty Williams once said, if someone's in your way, then move them." So ambitious young people, and we're looking forward to meeting them both and hearing more about them tonight. Dave, I think you need to unmute yourself.
So that was Marcel Marceau's. Subtitles will follow instantly. Well, as I was saying beforehand, hopefully, if the technology works, if mine didn't, let's hopefully welcome Heidi and Luke from Dorset and Surrey. Good evening to you both. Hi,
Yay.
guys. You there?
Hey, we're
Hello.
here. Yeah.
Hi.
Lovely to see you both, and it's nice to see you. We always start Together Talks with a soapbox, and your theme tonight is the values of being global citizens. Men first. Luke, off you go. Your soapbox, 2 minutes on the value of being a global citizen.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, I didn't write that quote. That quote was written by Neil deGrasse Tyson, but I really hope that those of you hearing that for the first time did think that I wrote it, as it's a very good, meaningful quote. So as you saw in the video, my name is Luke. I'm a drama teacher. I'm also a Rotarian at the Rotary Club of Winchester. I very much consider myself a global citizen as a result of my work and interaction with the Rotary Club, with them taking such a chance on me when I was in university 7 years ago, and now being a proud member of the club. I think being a global citizen can be defined very differently by everyone. Everyone have a different meaning to it, but for me personally, being a global citizen really is someone who's traveled the world. And I think that by traveling, not just going on holidays, but traveling with a sense of purpose, being able to stay in homes, being a part of different communities, and obviously learning as much as you can as you're doing that. But also being a global citizen is more than just physically traveling. I think in today's age with technology, being a global citizen is very much maintaining and growing friendships across the world and staying in touch with them regularly. Zoom has been a perfect example. The situation right now is a perfect example of that. I'm regularly having phone calls with people all over the world, asking how they're doing, seeing life from a different perspective. So traveling in itself is so important to me, as well as I think for everyone who does it. I think not just from the perspective of being able to learn about a new country, but I think that it's very important when you travel to get the experience to be able to learn about your own country. So something that I've been able to learn as I've traveled around the world is certainly what other people think of me when I tell them where I'm from. So I've seen everything from Downton Abbey crushes to Shakespearean performances on different corners of the globe, all the way to conversations around the footprint left behind by Imperial British history. And I think these are things that we're not taught very well. And so to be able to learn them through these experiences allows me to be a much better teacher, educator, and global citizen. So being a global citizen is very important to me. I look forward to all questions and talking about it a little bit more today.
Heidi, your turn. The value of being a global citizen.
Sure. So I consider myself a global citizen because of my passion to learn more about the world, with the aim of understanding communities and cultures more. I'm driven by the need to make the world a more equal and happy place for everybody. For me, volunteering and working in the development sector isn't just work or an act of good, it's a lifestyle. And what I mean by this is I'm not a good person from the hours of 9 till 5, Monday to Friday. Being a global citizen naturally has you thinking about ways you can contribute towards making a better world in all parts of life, 24 hours a day. So whether this is helping an elderly lady off the train, or sitting on the board of trustees for a charity, caring for my grandparents, to researching women's access to higher education in Kenya, whatever level I'm working at, I'm doing it with the objective of improving communities locally, nationally, and internationally.
The irony is, when you're talking about being a global citizen, is that both of you should have been in Uganda right now. Luke, what was that all about?
Yes, so sadly, I would be in Uganda right now if it wasn't for the situation. Thanks to a Rotaract connection back in 2014, I had the opportunity to go with some Rotarians from Winchester to a small town in Uganda called Kasese, where I met the Rotaract Club of Uganda, of Kasese, who were basically doing the same thing as we were doing in Winchester, but obviously in a completely different backdrop. So we made friends, learned a lot about each other, Rotary and lifestyles out there. And since coming back and again, talking about what I was saying earlier, maintaining that friendship, myself and several of the Rotaractors who are now Rotarians in that same club set up an organization called the Great Lakes Peace Center. And it's basically an organized grassroots youth-led organization run by them that does fantastic stuff. And obviously at the moment being hit with COVID-19, with floods that soon followed, they've just done an amazing job to be young people that are using Rotaract, Rotary and their communities to really do some good. So I was supposed to be there for a few weeks working on a conference, but as soon as things open up, I'll be looking at going back again.
And Heidi, you should have been there too. Joe Shannon's asking, what are the plans over the next 2 or 3 years for the collaboration with the Peace Centre in Uganda? Are you aware about that one? Do you want to take it, Luke? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Well, Heidi might know about it. Obviously, I don't know the specifics of where they're at the moment, but I was actually in Uganda last year in October when the Rotary Committee came to the Makerere University, and we were about a day early, so we couldn't attend, but we spoke to some of the lecturers there and got an idea of what they're doing. I'm not sure personally how they're doing in terms of whether they'll be open this year or not, but obviously the fantastic news is that now anyone who's looking at doing a Rotary Global Fellowship can choose Uganda as an option, which is brilliant.
Fantastic. We've got lots of questions to ask. And by the way, if you're listening to this and you want to send in your questions, please do so, because we're keen to take as many as we can. But Nikki, and I know you've got a few questions to fire at Luke and Heidi.
I do. Richard Burnett had actually asked you both to define global citizen. I think you did quite a good definition of that in your soapbox there. Is there anything else you would say that are particular values that you find in common with other global citizens that you meet around the world?
I think generally just the desire to sort of make the world a better place, especially in terms of making it more equal and more sustainable. I think now more than ever, there's the need for, sustainability with regards to the environment and climate change. And you just find, like, with other global citizens, you naturally click. Like myself and Luke, we naturally have a very good friendship because we follow like all the same things in life. So yeah.
Absolutely. Anything else you would like to add to that, Luke?
I guess similarly to what Heidi said, it's that notion of being connected to people, even though you're not from the same place. And I think that coronavirus is one of those things. The speaker before us, actually, Sanj, who was fantastic, and I meant to say it's incredibly hard to follow everything he said. It was a really, really fantastic talk. He mentioned in there about how I lost my trail of thought. I was complimenting Sanj, and I lost my trail of thought. Defining global citizens. Sorry, it was about feeling things together. So being connected. So he was saying before, coronavirus is one of those things that we've all felt on the same level, no matter where we're from, no matter our kind of levels of what we have access to. Everyone is kind of experiencing, certainly in our generation's views, something for the first time together. And though that degree of experience is relative to those people, certainly in my networks, it's seen as a real connection, a real conversation on those issues. So I think being a global citizen is not just kind of hopping country to country, it's being aware that where you are right now, you're also still connected to everyone.
Right, so you're not particularly identifying with any one place. That's great. I'm just curious, when did you first feel like you're a global citizen? Heidi, did you wake up one day and say, "Oh, I think I'm a global citizen"? How did that first connect for you?
I never actually thought of myself as a global citizen until you approached us with this suggestion title for tonight's talk. I kind of always, as I said, saw it as a lifestyle, but I never put a label on it. But as soon as you said it, it kind of made so much sense.
Yeah. And Luke?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say I kind of woke up overnight and had a sort of epiphany or an interesting dream or anything. But for me, there was certainly a kind of domino effect of when I started to see the world a lot differently. And before I got to university, I was studying mainly drama. And my kind of whole plan of my educational life was following a path of practical drama and theatre, looking at drama schools. And though you can be very open-minded in that world, I felt I wasn't particularly. I was focusing on things like auditions and things like that. And I changed my degree. I sort of changed what I was going to be taking. I studied drama and English. And I think that then opened my eyes a lot more, to the world. And then around that same time was the connection to Winchester Rotary, a lot of kind of community work, seeing parts of the community that I hadn't otherwise seen just as a student in the city of Winchester, such as the homeless community, the kind of refugee community, and, seeing Rotary's role within those areas and just seeing the problems themselves, being quite surprised that, things like poverty exist to the kind of point that it does. Here,
which could be a quite naive view, obviously, if you're living in it, but just the way that I'd lived drama, uni, it was really a kind of a few stages like that, but it wasn't really an overnight thing. It was just, but it was particularly, because of the Rotary.
The purpose-driven life, that's for sure. I'm just going to ask one other question that's a nice connection, obviously, between the global citizenship and Rotary world. Donna Wallbank, our current president here in Rotary Great Britain and Ireland, is asking, how do we motivate global citizens to join the Rotary family? And how do we give them a voice which is really heard when they join?
Heidi, you can go first.
I think it's all in the image of Rotary. What does Rotary in Great Britain and Ireland look like? Does it reflect a action-driven organisation? Does it reflect the demographic within Great Britain and Ireland? And if it does, then it's something that people are going to want to join. So how can we make it look like we're people of action, and we represent our whole, Great Britain and Ireland?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think following from that as well, it's also the way that the individual clubs are reflective of the communities that they're in as well. So it's a national image thing, it's a global image thing, but it's also an individual club thing. So for example, I'll go to Winchester Club, which is a large club with good diversity of members, a good kind of range of backgrounds from members as well. So I'll go into that club, I'll look around, and I'm seeing members of the community from kind of all areas. So to me, that's very reflective of what, they're walking the walk, or talking the talk, or doing the way around it is that they're doing well. So for me, I think following what Heidi said, that's very important, this global image of what's Rotary doing on a global scale, and it's important that Rotary is being seen and obviously actually doing projects that are relevant to what we're seeing at the moment, the large attention shift towards climate at the moment, towards equality and race. And I think that Rotary has to make sure that it's right at the forefront of being the solution to those things. And that's what's going to encourage young people to be joining it. And that can be done on a global level and on a national level, and obviously at a club level as well.
Fantastic answers. Right, Dave, over to you.
Yeah, I've got one of those questions. I call them the blue touch paper questions. You ask it and then you retire and you see what the answer is. It's from Cheryl Law, and she says this: what do you find most frustrating about Rotarians, and how best can we help you?
Luke, would you like to go first?
Well, okay. I mean, given on a serious note, I guess given the climate of today, it'd be hard to taint all Rotarians with the same brush of what one Rotarian may be like. I think there are certain demographics in Rotary that are quite solid and clear, and then there's other areas of Rotary where the diversity is astoundingly beautiful. So I think, yes, there's frustrations with Rotarians, but I don't think it comes from a place of the fact that they're Rotarians. I think those frustrations will come from individual instances that you've had with Rotarians. So, well, I won't go into any personal ones. There hasn't been many, but one example would be when I was in Rotaract, we were trying to do an event alongside Amnesty International. And I remember we were kind of taken aside by the current person in charge of that area, and he said, oh, be very careful, very political, tread carefully, maybe best not to do it. And though he meant well, he didn't understand what we were doing. He didn't understand the context of the event. We weren't marching with balaclavas ready to, we were supporting an event, and it was that kind of short-sightedness of the rules. You're not allowed to do that. It was not seeing the wider picture. So I think the frustration comes with instances like that, where it's almost like, let us do our own thing, let us be responsible for what we're doing. So that's where frustration has come. It's not always black and white, but that's certainly from my perspective.
Heidi?
For me, I think firstly I'll say that I have a lot of Rotarians who are very good friends of mine. Like, I've got Rotarians that I love and are so close to me, like, all over the world. With regards to some Rotarians in Great Britain and Ireland, something that frustrates me is the resilience for change. Some Rotarians have been in Rotary for 30, 40, 50 years. And for example, women have only been allowed to be in Rotary for 30 years. For some Rotarians, this is still an issue. They don't want women in Rotary. So for me, this is something that's not even questionable. So it's very clear cut, like, of course, women should be in Rotary. And we're talking about a 30-year issue. So that's a big resilience to change. And when you scale it down to simple things like who can become club president, how many years experience should you be in your club before you be club president, little things like that, when really, change isn't something that happens every 5-10 years or even every year. Change is something that happens every second of every day. It's fluid. And I think that we need to be encouraging our Rotarians to have this mindset to continue to grow Rotary and to make it more sustainable.
Yeah, and mention women in Rotary. In 2 weeks' time, we've got Sylvia Whitlock, who's going to be joining us, who is obviously the lady who opened the doors to women some 30 years ago, which that should be interesting. James Lovett seems to know you because he's given us a question each for you. So we'll go first with Luke. James is saying, Luke, what has been your biggest challenge in moving from Rotaract to Rotary?
Good question. And hello, James. We go way back. I think challenges, there's obviously been many kind of positive challenges, many negative ones. I think what I was talking about before is an example of the negative challenges, the resistance to change. So I'll answer with a more positive challenge, which really is, I mentioned earlier in the video, the role that I have now within the Winchester Rotary Club is being chair of the Environment Committee, and it's also sitting on the International Committee. Both those positions come with responsibilities of being able to delegate budgets, money from budgets. And what's been very interesting, really exciting actually, is sort of 7 years ago, starting in Rotaract, many of our projects, would pick a cause, would pick an issue, and we would kind of approach the solution to that by a very kind of, we'd be doing cake sales, or we'd be washing Rotarians' cars, or doing, strange things for money, obviously always legal. And we would then be kind of coming to the solution, the homeless shelter in Winchester, or the thing we're supporting, with a neat packet, sort of £68.30, and thank you very much, and not disparaging that at all. I think we had to start somewhere, but now sitting in these committees and seeing some of the levels of responsibility required, on allocating funding, on choosing the projects that will receive that funding, that in itself is a challenge. And I say it's a positive challenge because to be in that position now after 7 sort of years ago, with a sort of Oliver Twist hat, begging, has been such an interesting experience, and has posed a whole range of new challenges that I wasn't necessarily expecting. But obviously having a supportive club, having members that have joined my committees, being given a platform on those committees to make real suggestions and take risks, has been a real challenge, but obviously a welcome positive one.
And Heidi, just 2 weeks before you take over as chair of Rotaract, James asks this of you. Given dual membership as an option now, what is the largest barrier stopping you from being part of Rotary today?
One of my biggest barriers is the fact that I'm looking to apply for a Rotary scholarship to do my master's in about 3 years' time, and I can't apply for that scholarship if I'm a Rotarian, so I'm not going to be doing that. However, I think in general, one of the biggest barriers for me would be finance. Some Rotary clubs are very expensive. Some of them have weekly meals, and this isn't something that I would be able to afford, or would potentially have the time to do. So I think the lack of flexibility with a lot of Rotary clubs in Great Britain and Ireland is probably my biggest barrier to join.
That's great, thank you. Nikki.
Yeah, so David Breton, actually, let's go backwards a little bit. Let's just back up a little bit. David Breton is saying, I'd like to ask you how you both got involved in Rotaract in the first place. What was the first dipping of the toe in the water?
All right, I'll start with that. So I was studying at the University of Winchester. I took a course that was a course in leadership, and the course itself was a bit strange, but at the end there were these guest speakers that came in as members of the community who used leadership in their area. And there were several different people, the editor of a newspaper, a head teacher, and there was 2 people who were from Winchester Rotary. And I remember it really well because I always tell the story because they say we're from the Winchester Rotary Club. They then listed all these things that they did, which was incredible. And I must have been distracted for a second. And I was sure that they said they were the Winchester Rowing Club. And I remember turning to the person next to me and saying, God, this rowing club, is pretty impressive, to fit this in. Obviously, I soon realized my mistake, and they were talking about an event that they were doing in the district, so this District 1110, where they run an event called Kids Day Out. And basically for one day of the year, they take kids from all over the district, specifically from special needs schools, and they just give them a day at the theme park, Paulton's Park, or it's a nationwide thing, so different kind of areas. And they basically needed volunteers. They needed people to come and help look after kids. I had my kind of wanting to become a teacher hat on. I'd been kind of rejected from every local school when I offered to apply to do anything from sharpen pencils to teach. And they took me on, and they took me to the Kids Day Out. They said, here's 10 kids, take them for a wonderful day at the theme park. And it was only on the bus back, when I was sat next to the two Rotarians, that I said to them, so, what is this? Like, what do you actually do? And they began saying, we're members from the community, we do these projects. Why don't you come to a meeting and see for yourself? And they invited me to a meeting. And it was at that meeting where I sat at a table with, this complete colorful host of guests just on that table alone, just thinking, how did all these people meet each other and kind of come in this one place, for dinner, and a chat, and also be doing these amazing projects in the community and worldwide. And, it sounds like a sort of cheesy story, but it was generally that kind of eye-opening moment of, it was,
Wow.
it was really, it resonated a lot with what I wanted at that time.
Super. I'm going to twist your question a little bit, Heidi, because as Dave just reminded us, you are soon to be the leader of Rotaract in Great Britain and Ireland, and Luke's had that role too. Talk about how you came into Rotaract and so quickly have ended up being a leader in Rotaract, if you would. Path to leadership. What's the
Yeah, I mean, why not?
Why not?
Again, I think that's the issue with Rotary. It's not the amount of time that you spent in an organization that matters. It's what you've done with that time. And I think as soon as I stepped into Rotaract, I was like ready to go, like just ready to take on leadership positions. Often the stereotype of young people is that, we need training in leadership, and that we don't know what we're doing, and that we're very young and naive. And this is often viewed as a negative thing, when, in reality, young people are not just the leaders of tomorrow, but we're the leaders of today.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that was my approach coming into Rotaract.
Mm-hmm.
I got into Rotaract when I was working in Kenya for an organization as a programs officer. I'd been so I knew what Rotary was from my own local community. The first time I ever publicly spoke was at my Rotary club when I was 15, and it was very, very formal. I remember being terrified, and it was a big fancy dinner. And since then, I'd been sort of bumping into Rotarians all around the world. But it was a couple of years ago when I was in Kenya that myself and a few other friends decided to set up a Rotaract club. And for the 4 months that I was there, it was my whole life, not just my social life, but, my weekends when I wasn't working. We were doing projects in the community. We were having fun together. And, from then on in, I just wanted to be in Rotaract wherever I was. So I really brought that attitude back to the UK with me, where obviously Rotaract is much smaller, but, I have that drive to grow Rotaract because I've seen how amazing it is. Yeah.
Excellent. Dave?
Well, yeah, no, Heidi, if you were to take the temperature of Rotaract in this country now, how warms the body? How is Rotaract doing in these isles?
I think it's doing better than we think it's doing. But if you compare it to, other countries, we are small. However, that's fine. Like we've got that strong core to work with. I think, if we just provide that communication, then, Rotaract will grow. And I think if Rotarians view Rotaract correctly, which is, we're not just here to move the chairs, we're here as active minds. Like, we love volunteering at events, but we also want to be involved and have a voice at the table. So I think if Rotarians view us like that, then Rotaract will definitely begin to grow.
It's interesting because there's a question here from Christine Dagwell-Thompson, who says, what is the best way to encourage children and grandchildren to become Rotaractors, given that many Rotarians in these isles haven't done that? So how can you get the families to come across to Rotaract?
Well, it's a very good question, and will be dependent obviously on the clubs. But going back to what I said earlier, it's just about maintaining that image. If you have to kind of reverse the question and think, well, why would they want to be part of it to begin with, why does that Rotary Club need them, and why would they be within that group as a good fit? And I think if that Rotary Club models itself as a place that, welcomes people of all backgrounds, ages as well, they'll have a much more kind of positive response. I mean, we, not to shed any spotlights, but there are clubs, Rotaract clubs, that don't accept you to bring children or your babies. There are Rotary clubs that have certain rules on things that can come in and out. So I think the onus is very much on the Rotary clubs themselves to create an environment that would want to even be visited, by Rotarians' children, and grandchildren. If they create a space where, if you brought, two 6-year-olds and they saw fun and, whatever, that's going to stay a lot more than, them not being there or being kind of put in the corner and not being a part of it. So I think it's sort of fostering their own images to make them more attractive, so people would want to come. I mean, one example as well, just one of the roles that I'm going to be taking on is as a district representative this coming year for the district as the Rotarian and Rotaractor in my kind of dual capacity. So working with the incoming district governor, Tim Mason, who I'll give a little shout out to, he runs an online Rotary Club called the Rotary Club of Social Innovation. And Tim's managed to find a way to link to people of all across the community, and not even just to recruit them at first. It's basically, look what we're doing. And through that approach, he's had so many people join, which has been whole families, parents and their kids are joining, and they're making allowances and acceptances for that. The overall costs are low. It's a really interesting dynamic model for a club that's obviously working. So I think, to understand how it might look, we should be looking at groups like that, whilst also not forgetting to lose some of the more traditional aspects of Rotary, which some clubs obviously, love. If they've met in a certain place for decades, it's going to be harder to leave that place, but it's about having a balance of the same two things. I think Sanj last week, said brilliantly about adapting to change, listening to change, communicating that change. I thought everything he said was fantastic and should almost be a training video for Rotary clubs. That's why I lost my trail of thought earlier, just admiring him. But I think that attitude of adapting, the change can be slow, but it's adapting to it and then communicating it.
Time's racing on here. But go on, Dave.
No, I was just going to link into that, if I may, because Tim Mason is a strong advocate of e-clubs.
Yeah.
And Les Rendell was asking, are e-clubs the saviour for Rotaract growth?
Yes, that's the one I wanted. Yeah.
So, along with some other Rotaractors and Luke, I'm currently setting up the Rotaract E-Club of Great Britain and Ireland. This is particularly beneficial to me as someone who is constantly on the go. So a geographically based Rotaract club isn't something that I can commit to, whereas the E-Club is, super flexible. I can be anywhere and still participate in the service projects and the meetings. I don't think e-clubs necessarily have to be the solution. I think the solution is the flexibility. You can have a club, say a district club or a city club that you're a part of. And I think as long as you have that flexibility to suit the people in your club, then I think that is the solution. You could, it's best if we alternate our meetings. One week we meet in person and the next week we meet online. So I think it's recognizing who is in your club and what are the needs and wants of those people, and being flexible for that and for change. Obviously at the moment everything is online, and that's super great, especially for me, but a lot of people like that contact with people in person. So I don't think we necessarily have to lose that. What we do have to increase is the flexibility.
So a couple of people here are very interested in your rather bright looking futures. Margaret Hutchinson is asking, do you see yourselves working in peace and conflict resolution in the future, and how? But I'd like to couple that with Roger Heath's question, which was simply, what are your personal goals for yourselves in Rotary?
You can go first, Heidi.
Oh boy. Okay, I think my personal goals in Rotary is to carry on ensuring Rotary is diverse and Rotary is inclusive. And what I mean by this isn't that, we have a fancy statement that says we are diverse and we are inclusive, but that we are, at the front line of diversity and inclusion. We are actively, making sure we are including marginalized groups of people. you know, we are inclusive, so let's actively reflect that. And if I can be a part of that change, then, you know, for me, that's why I want to be in Rotary.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. Luke?
Let's go.
Okay, go on.
Dave or me?
No, Luke, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So for me, I guess plans to work in conflict resolution in the future. I'm very lucky to say that I'm working in conflict resolution right now. For the last sort of 5 or 6 years, I've been a drama teacher, using drama as a way of teaching things like conflict resolution, peace education, and I've been running drama workshops for older people's homes, refugee groups, prisons, and that's obviously given me a huge understanding, certainly, of some of the work that we're doing, even in Rotary. So I don't have any kind of big dreams to be somewhere one day in conflict resolution necessarily, but I just, you know, hope to be continuing doing what I'm doing already, which has recently moved to online drama teaching, which is a really bizarre experience altogether that I'll tell you about another time. I guess for personal goals within Rotary, you know, my sort of main goal obviously is to give back to the Rotary Club of Winchester, which, you know, took such a big chance on me, you know, has given me so much support, you know, not just you know, sponsoring a visit to Uganda or sponsoring something, but, you know, the kind of life that it's given me. So I'm driven to kind of work with it, you know, obviously still suggest changes, challenge things, you know, to be myself within that club, but also to do a lot for them and with them, which I'm, you know, already achieving hugely with my new role, with my roles in the committee and some of the things that we're doing so far. But yeah, I've had a really interesting ride so far, you know, from being the sort of charter president with a big group of students to taking on a district role, to then doing the national role, which Heidi's about to do, you know, very quickly threw me into this kind of world, you know, this understanding that Rotary is much bigger than what I thought it was. So I'm still on that ride. I'm still very much enjoying it, and I'd like to know where I'll be in 3 years.
Wow. It's honestly, I know we've got so many more questions, and I feel like we could keep going for as much time again, but I don't know whether it's because we've got 2 of you tonight, but it just seems that it's gone even quicker. Did you have a last one you wanted to jump in there with, Dave?
No, fine. No, fine. I've got to be in the I've got to be in the pub in 5 minutes. So go on, off you go.
The clock's definitely beaten us once again. But as you both know, we would love you to sum up with some action points and some takeaways for us tonight. So let's try and jump in with a couple of those, if you would, so people can take something away. Heidi, do you want to go first?
Absolutely, sure. So I think the first thing to remember is that you don't have to be a global citizen to help in your community or another community. You know, for me and Luke, this is our lifestyles. This is what we commit all of our time to. But for a lot of people, you know, they have different lives. So it's okay to commit just a little bit of your time to doing good. So, you know, whatever you do is absolutely incredible for your community and for the wider world.
Fantastic.
I guess for me, it's kind of echoing something Heidi said earlier, which was just that, you know, young people aren't simply the future, they're the present. And I like that a lot because it just emphasizes the responsibility, you know, particularly on older people, you know, particularly people within Rotary of, you know, all institutions, to embrace bringing young people into them, you know, not as unpaid interns, not for their experience, but in roles of responsibility, and to really give them the kind of vehicle that they need to do some of the things that, you know, lots of young people are doing at the moment. You know, it's only through those opportunities that many of these things can even begin to happen. So, and then similarly, in response to kind of younger people, to, you know, to ask for that, you know, to go out and put themselves in a position to receive that as well, because it's obviously not just about handouts, you know, it's about wanting to be in that situation to even be able to get that moving at all. So from both sides, you know, look at working together, look at challenging each other, and that's my advice.
Well, it's so inspiring to talk to you both. I mean, clearly, you know, the fact it is a way of life for you, both of you, comes across so strongly. And I think you are fantastic role models for so many of us, quite frankly. When we grow up, maybe we want to be like you too. So very inspiring and a lot of wonderful energy. And I know that we've got lots more that we're going to see of you going forward. So thank you so much.
Super. Thank you.
Thank you, Heidi, and thank you, Luke. So that's almost it. Next week, I'm looking forward to welcoming Roy Spencer, who will be joining us from Chicago. Roy will be talking about conscious capitalism, which should be a fascinating subject, and he'll be discussing the theme of elevating humanity through business.
And a week later, on June 30th, as we've already mentioned, I'm very excited that we will have Sylvia Whitlock from California, the wonderful lady who's responsible for enabling women to join Rotary, and her theme will be pushing the boundaries of Rotary. So remember, you can sign up for these talks, and we have an exciting program lined up for the whole of July by registering on our Eventbrite page. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel and don't forget to log in. And remember, we do record these, so please go ahead and share them with your clubs. Demonstrate these wonderful people that we've enjoyed meeting tonight, and get other people engaged in the conversation with us. Join us 19:05 for Together Talks next Tuesday. It's good night from Dave, and it's good night from me. Thanks again, everyone.